Hello and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Andrea, and I am pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you are able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes the Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl Fair. And now here's Reverend Cheryl.
Hello, 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 everyone. So glad to be here with everyone who's in the Zoom room with me right now. And welcome to everyone who's watching on YouTube, whether you're watching live or later. We are happy to have you with us. Our broadcast date today is June the 2nd, 2024. Welcome to the month of June. June has a lot going on. So June, a little information about June. June gets its name from the Roman goddess Juno, the goddess of youth and protection. So she's the wife of Jupiter, and she watches over marriages. So we know that June is a very popular month to get married. Juno's name also means rejuvenate and to aid, and she's often portrayed in very assertive images as she protects those that come under her protection. So Juno's attributes include energy, youthfulness, and creative power. And the month of June carries great positive energy for improving relationships. Now, June is also Pride Month, when the world's LGBTQIA plus communities and their allies come together and celebrate the freedom to be themselves. The original organizers of Pride Month chose this month to pay homage to the Stonewall uprising in June of 1969 in New York City, which helped spark the modern gay rights movement. June 19th is, here's the official name of it, Juneteenth National Independence Day, which we often kind of squinch down into Juneteenth. This is a federal holiday commemorating the ending of slavery in the United States on June 19th, 1865, when Major General Gordon Granger ordered the final enforcement of the Emancipation Proclamation in Texas at the end of the American Civil War. So I want to point out, for those of you who follow our weekly newsletter, we have been carrying a notice about a Juneteenth event that will be taking place in Virginia on the weekend following July the 4th, featuring Dr. Opal Lee. Opal Lee is an activist often referred to as the grandmother of Juneteenth, and she campaigned for decades to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, leading walks in many states to promote the idea. And earlier this year, Lee was presented with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the nation's highest civilian honor. So I encourage you to look at the information for that Juneteenth event. So that's all about June. It's an eventful month. And here at Unity of Fredericksburg, we've been working on an annual theme of well-being, and our monthly focus for June is community well-being. So this backdrop of Pride Month and Juneteenth provides us with a lot to consider and a lot to celebrate when it comes to community. So, I like to look things up, right? So What does community mean? Well, it's a pretty common word. We have an understanding of what it means. As I look it up, I find community is a collective, whether that's people or animals or countries, sharing a characteristic in common or a collection of characteristics. So these things can be location, like where you live, or genetics, like family associations, or the affiliation of a school, or interests like needlepoint or religion, or just basically something in common, whatever it is that brings a group together, forms a community. So something for all of us to ponder this month is, what does community mean to you? And what communities are you a part of? Because all of us are a part of communities, some communities that we can really see and touch and feel, and other communities that don't have that kind of structure. Here's a quote from Albert Einstein about community. Although I am a typical loner in my daily life, my awareness of belonging to the invisible community of those who strive for truth, beauty, and justice has prevented me from feelings of isolation. Isn't that lovely? Are you a member of that invisible community that Einstein refers to? Those who strive for truth, beauty, and justice? I bet many of you are. So, as we look at community well-being this month, I encourage you to ask yourself, what can I do to enhance the well-being of my community, whatever community it is that you are thinking about, whether it's your family gatherings over the summer, or your spiritual community, or the community of your country, whatever it is. Now, here at Unity of Fredericksburg, we are a community based on the exploration of spiritual beliefs and practices, particularly unity principles and practices. And we engage in the well-being of our community through Sunday mornings online and in-person events. We know that, right? And in particular, today is New Member Sunday, and we are celebrating those who have chosen to join us in community. And we will do that later in our Zoom room after we finish with the message and meditation this morning. I want to just kind of talk through the process that we went through to come up with our different focuses each month for our theme of well-being. We started with the process of generating ideas around our annual theme back in the fall. In October and November, there were a couple of Zoom sessions that were held to generate ideas, and then I kind of collected all the ideas and sort of sorted them into themes, into focus areas, and the ideas that came together around the theme for June, community well-being. I just want you to hear the list and hear what was on the minds of those who participated in these collaborative idea generating sessions, so that you understand why I'm making the choices that I'm making about what to share. So the things that were coming up for people were community identity, diversity, cultural awareness, nonviolent communications, being present with people who have different worldviews than our own, listening circles. So, as we talk about community this month, we will be looking beyond the community of our comfort zones and out into the world where things get a little bit prickly sometimes, right? Or sometimes a lot prickly. So what I have chosen this month to help us through this process is this book, See No Stranger by Valerie Kaur. And the subtitle there is A Memoir and Manifesto of Revolutionary Love. Sounds pretty good, right? Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about Valerie Kaur. She's an American activist, documentary filmmaker, lawyer, educator, and faith leader. And I think these days she'd also describe herself as a mother. She has 2 children. This is a very small little list of things that she has done in her life. She's in her 40s right now. She's the founder of Groundswell Movement, considered America's largest multi-faith online organizing network. The co-founder of Faithful Internet, which organizes people of faith to protect net neutrality. And she is the founder and director of the Revolutionary Love Project, a not-for-profit that produces tools aimed at reclaiming love as a force for justice. So I encourage you to visit her website, which is valeriecore.com. Let me spell that for you. It's VALARIE, and core is spelled KAUR.com. And I also encourage you in particular to watch her TED Talk. And in the Zoom room later, I will post a link to her website and to the page with her TED Talk. And again, for those who read our newsletter every week, you'll see that there's an image that I'm using for each one of the messages that I present. And that image is created by Valerie Core, and it's called the Revolutionary Love Compass. So it's a circle with 3 sections. So each one of the messages I'll be sharing is one of the sections in this Revolutionary Love Compass. So See No Stranger, the book is a memoir, and Valerie begins by sharing about her childhood growing up in California. Her immediate family has its roots in India, and her immediate family has been farming in California for more than a century. So Valerie is American born, and some of her family have been in the country for more than a century, and others are more recent immigrants from India, and some of her family still live in India. Her family practices the Sikh religion. So that's SIKH. A little bit about Sikhism. Now, last year we had one of our themes was interfaith, but we didn't get around to talking about Sikhism. So we'll learn a little bit about that this month. So that'll be an extra bonus for June. So Sikhism originated in the Punjab region of India around the end of the 15th century, so that's the 1400s, good long time ago. The core beliefs of Sikhism include faith and meditation in the name of the one creator, divine unity and equality of all humankind, engaging in selfless service, striving for justice for the benefit and prosperity of all, and honest conduct and livelihood while caring for the home life. Sounds pretty good, right? Yeah. Sikhs display their faith through outer symbols, including adorning themselves with long, uncut hair. And Sikh men and some women wrap their long hair in turbans as an outer symbol. This is meant to identify them in a crowd. It's an outer symbol of their commitment to love and serve others. Now, Valerie Core shares a number of Sikh poems and prayers at the end of her book. So let me read you one of those as a way of introducing you to this book and some bits about the Sikh faith. Now, this is a poem called, and please forgive my pronunciation, whether it's correct or not, Kanara Mela Panjva. So it's pretty short. I have forgotten my envy of others since I found my sacred company. I see no enemy. I see no stranger. All of us belong to each other. What the divine does, I accept as good. I have received this wisdom from the holy. The one pervades all. Gazing upon the one, beholding the one, I blossom forth in happiness. Isn't that lovely? So, all right. So Valerie Kaur begins her book with a chapter called Wonder. And she talks about the joy she had exploring the natural setting of her home on a farm. This was a farm where they were growing apricots and olives and things like that in Southern California, and a sense of wonder based on her Sikh faith that she was learning from her family. So she engaged with life in the spirit of absolute truth, saying, "You are a part of me I do not know yet." So as she had learned this from her grandfather, from her parents. So as she went through, she tells this wonderful story of being out in a field and seeing a butterfly and holding up her finger and having the butterfly come and land on her finger. And she's greeting it in the way that she has been taught. "You are a part of me I do not know yet." So, as her story goes on, as often happens in life, things become more challenging. So, once she goes to public school, Valerie is a brown-skinned girl. She describes herself as a brown-skinned girl with long black braids, and she experiences racism for the first time at school. And she had been taught, according to her Sikh face, to see no stranger, but she finds herself being labeled as a stranger by some of the other children, even in her home community. So that sense of community, do I belong? Do I not belong? What does all of this mean? Comes up pretty early for her in life. And she talks about that in her first chapter. And the second chapter fast forwards to her second year in college, and this would be 2001. And as I prepared to read you a quote, I just want you to think about what happened in 2001, because something happened in 2001 that we are all aware of. And this is Valerie Kaur's description of how she came to awareness about that. So it was early September, and I was home. My father woke me up and pulled me to the television. A ball of fire burgeoning into a blue sky. We watched as a second plane exploded into the south tower of the World Trade Center, and people jumped from high stories, disappearing to the bottom of the screen. We did not see their impact. We only felt the weightlessness of the fall. That's what it was like for all of us who were watching helplessly from afar. We were not inside our bodies. We were inside screens watching the Twin Towers collapse over and over again on an endless loop until the face of the person responsible appeared on every screen, every channel, and in every newspaper. Osama bin Laden of the terrorist network Al-Qaeda, his face, brown skin, black beard, round turban. Our nation's new enemy looked like my family. Can you imagine such a thing? Where all of a sudden, the individual identified as the terrorist, as the enemy, looked like her family, looked like her grandfather, her uncles, her father. And not long after, as in within 24 hours of the attack on September 11th, 2001, a close friend of Valerie's family, someone she called Uncle, was the first person to be killed in a wave of violence that went across this nation, targeting Muslims, Sikhs, Hindus, Arabs, and South Asian Americans. So this book becomes quite intense very quickly, and it's her story of how Valerie strives to align what she is experiencing in the world and the foundations of her Sikh faith. Now, her career as a filmmaker and an activist began as she and a friend, they were college students again, so she had a project that she was doing for school that was approved by her advisors, making a film. So she and a friend went across the nation interviewing survivors of the hate crimes that happened after 9/11 and the grief of those left behind. So she strives to show up as a witness to this grief and to be present with others so that they would know that they do not grieve alone. So she collects and finds ways to share these stories, and she moves into a space where her faith shows her how to fight these waves of hate that are showing up. And there's an image in the Sikh faith. One of the archetypes of the Sikh faith is called the warrior sage. And so here's a description from Valerie of the warrior sage and how that how being a warrior sage guides you to embrace or confront the world. When you love someone, you fight to protect them when they are in harm's way. If you see no stranger and choose to love all people, then you must fight for anyone who is suffering from the harm of injustice. This was the path of the warrior sage. The warrior fights, the sage loves, revolutionary love. So, revolutionary love is one of the themes, the mission of what Valerie Cord does as an activist, as a filmmaker. This is a pretty intense book, and I'm going to be sharing just bits and pieces with you. And if you feel drawn, of course, you can find the book yourself and see what it has for you. The book is a powerful testimony of how we can carry our spiritual beliefs while navigating a world that is intense and difficult sometimes. And some of you may have been feeling that the world is pretty intense and difficult lately. So our goal here is to bring this wisdom from this book home to the point of us and ask ourselves some questions as we work this theme of community well-being. So, as you and I go through our daily lives, what can we do to expand our sense of community so that we see no stranger? When we encounter people who don't look like us, sound like us, have the same values or worldview as we do, what can we do to greet them in our hearts as a part of me I do not know yet? What can we do to expand our notion of community beyond the human ideas that our brain gives us about separation, like us and them, rival teams, political parties, clans, tribes? How can we move past that? Now, in unity, we begin with a community that we call oneness, right? We talk about there being one presence and one power. And since there's only one, then naturally, each one of us is expressing this oneness, because it's not like there's oneness here and I'm over there by myself. Oneness means we are all a part of this community of oneness. We are one with spirit. We are one with each other. And we often in unity call this presence that we show up with Christ consciousness. We talk about the Christ, not Jesus, the man or anything, but the Christ being the energy of that oneness, the consciousness of oneness that we show up with as the Christ consciousness, expressing at the core of each and every one of us. So once we come to this awareness, when we show up in unity and start hearing about this, it can take some practice for us to realize our own oneness. Yes, it doesn't always come naturally, because in the outer world, in say the religion that we grew up with, or our brains tell us that we are separate. So what we do is we pray. We use affirmative prayer in unity. We meditate. We study. We practice realizing the oneness, and we strive to express that Christ consciousness even when we're having a bad day, right? So it's an ongoing practice, right? And then there's the challenging aspect of realizing that oneness means that everybody else is also an expression of spirit at the point of them, even the people who look and sound different than you do. And unfortunately, our brains are not always helpful with this because our brains really like to sort things into categories. And our brains actually kind of really get excited and joyful about sorting things into categories, right? So, another book that I'm reading right now, and it's very interesting for me to be reading these two books at the same time. I've mentioned this one before. It's called Joyful, and it's by Ingrid Fattel Lee. And she talks about how our brains love sorting things. This is a chapter called Harmony, and the section is called How the Brain Tidies Up. So she talks about the pleasurable aha sensation we feel when we see related objects as a group suggests that the brain's processes for identifying objects may be intrinsically connected to the reward mechanism in the limbic system. In other words, joy is the brain's natural reward for staying alert to correlations and connections in our surroundings. So this principle helps explain why collections feel so joyful. So our brains are naturally wired to collect things into things that sound alike, things that look alike. And then what happens then, once our brain does that, then everything that's outside of those boundaries becomes other, right? This happens naturally. So when our brain sees something that doesn't fit in, it just naturally throws up a red flag and tells us to be wary. That's what our brain does. So on a spiritual level, we are charged with breathing through that moment where our brain is going, oh, watch out. That person looks different, to seeing the Christ consciousness, even in the people who annoy you, even in the people who hurt you, even in the people who commit horrible, violent acts. It's not an easy ask, I know. And just like the circumstances that Valerie Kaur describes in her book, we encounter these kinds of situations in our own lives. And as we look at the news, I hope you're not looking at the news. But if you are, bless your heart. So as we go through our day-to-day lives, we must notice our reactions, the reactions that our brain is giving us. We need to breathe deeply through that moment and practice expanding our sense of community so that we see no stranger. Here's a quote from Ernest Holmes in Spiritual Awareness. Every person represents an individualization of the universal wholeness, the love, peace, joy, and freedom of the spirit. Therefore, we have a divine right to rise above fear, impoverishment, and disease. And I'm adding at the end of that, conflict. We have a divine right to rise above that. When we encounter people or circumstances and our brain is throwing up a red flag, this looks different. Let us strive to just notice what's happening, breathe through that moment, and greet this circumstance or other individual in our hearts as a part of me I do not know yet. Let us not allow our brains to get in there and start sorting and labeling. Let us not allow our guts to drive us into, decisions of what's right and what's wrong. Let us greet them with our hearts, focusing our energy on love. Here's a quote from Thomas Keating in Intimacy with God. Bonding with others takes place as the love of the Spirit is poured forth from our hearts. We feel that we belong to our community, to the human family, to the cosmos. We feel that our prayer is not just a privatized journey, but is having a significant effect in the world. We can pour into the world the love that Spirit gives us in prayer. And it is up to us to create community in spaces, even in space, particularly in spaces where our brain shows us division. It is up to us to create community. Now, how do we do this? This is a question we will continue to ponder all month. We have a couple of ideas here today: see no stranger and greeting things that seem different as a part of me I do not know yet. Here's a quote along these lines from Stanley Hauerwas. I don't know if I pronounced his name correctly. It's from Living Gently in a Violent World. There are three activities that are absolutely vital in the creation of community. First is eating together around the same table. The second is praying together. And the third is celebrating together. And from an African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I'm going to close this part, and before we head into our meditation, with one more quote from Valerie Kaur in See No Stranger, where she talks about a practice that she uses to navigate all of these things that we are talking about. I started a simple practice. As I move through my day and come across faces on the street or subway or on a screen, I say in my mind, sister, brother, aunt, uncle. I start to wonder about each of them as a person. When I do this, I am retraining my mind to see more and more kinds of people as part of us rather than them. I practice this with animals and parts of the earth too. I say in my mind, you are a part of me I do not yet know. I practice orienting to the world with wonder, preparing myself for the possibility of connection. So as we connect, we create community. So let us do so joyfully through our power of divine love. Thanks so much for being here, friends. Let us now move into our time of meditation. Let's begin with a few deep breaths. And if you wish, you can allow your outer eyes to drift closed. I'm going to once more share from the Sikh wisdom poems and prayers that are in the book See No Stranger. And we'll do that to prepare the silence together. And this is a prayer that is called Song of Hope. Wondrous is sound, wondrous is ancient wisdom. Wondrous are the creatures, wondrous are their varieties. Wondrous are the forms, wondrous are the colors. Wondrous are the beings who wander around unclothed. Wondrous is the wind, wondrous is the water. Wondrous is the fire which works wonders. Wondrous is the earth, wondrous the sources of creation. Wondrous are the tastes we seek and seize. Wondrous is union, wondrous is separation. Wondrous is hunger, wondrous is satisfaction. Wondrous is divine praise, wondrous is divine adoration. Wondrous is the wilderness, wondrous is the right path. Wondrous is closeness, Wondrous is distance. Wondrous to face the divine, ever present now. Beholding these wonders, I am wonder-struck. Those who understand this are blessed. And now we move together into the silence for a few moments. And as we begin to bring our attention back to the current moment, back to the body, the feet gently touching the floor, our body in the seat, we bring with us this sense of wonder. Wonder in the natural world, wonder in our human world, wonder in our spiritual awareness. And we close our time of meditation today with an affirmation. And that affirmation, I'll say it with me, and then you can repeat it with me a couple times at home, okay? I create community with a loving heart, and I am grateful. Say it with me at home, friends. I create community with a loving heart, and I am grateful. Let's do it one more time. I create community with a loving heart, and I am grateful. So I am, so you are, my friends. Thank you so much for being here. And now I'm going to hand it back to our friend Andrea.
And wondrous is Reverend Cheryl. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation, and support our ministry with your financial donation. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.